Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the morning after. I am your host, Sharleen Joynt, and today we are recapping episode 4 of The Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart. I'm going to get right into it. We knew that something weird was going to happen with this episode because the first 5 or so minutes were dedicated to showing how happy the couples were and how comfortable they were with each other. And so we knew there was a curveball coming because nothing can remain that harmonious in the Bachelor world. So Chris Harrison arrives to inform the contestants that it's chemistry in those performances that matter. Never mind that they were cast for their talents, it's chemistry. And that it's also what truly propels the music to the next level. Debatable, but I'm gonna save my breath. You guys have heard me go on about this enough. Of course, he is just justifying that they are about to be sent on dates with people in other relationships to test those relationships and to ensure that the last couple standing is truly committed. This is getting so ridiculous. I'm gonna not zip. I'm not talking anymore about this. You guys know how I feel about this. It's obvious that this is all a ruse to make Julia get some alone time with Brandon, preferably with alcohol involved, and to watch them really sort of explore that finally. So the dates themselves, Rudy and Chris and Jamie and Ryan, these were really cute. It was so obvious that they were, platonic friends. They got along great, but it was also funny to me because the dates were so clearly like budget afterthought dates. Like one of them was like a spa date where they were randomly wearing robes. We never saw any of the spa. And the other one was basically in the backyard of the mansion. Like Rudy could see Matt working out with binoculars. So it's safe to say they didn't go super far. I just thought this was funny because in contrast, Julia and Brandon's date, basically the date that this entire thing was built around, was of course a legitimate bachelor date. So they're at the Roxy. It's an iconic venue. It's like darker, a little sexier. There's definitely alcohol involved, and they have some celebrity songwriter to help them, and they go on this journey together where they write a song and it bonds them. I mean, we all knew what was going to happen here, but it was just funny how the difference in caliber between the dates, like they didn't even pretend that there wasn't a difference. So the aftermath, Julia sits Sheridan down, and Julia, I have a heart for Julia. I definitely have a soft spot for her because I do like things about her, but at the same time, she does things wrong, or at least in a way that I wouldn't expect from what I imagine her to be like. So this is one of those moments where I felt like she's finally made her decision. She has the closure she wants. She's going into this confident, and yet she plays the victim. She is really just ambiguous. She's like cryptic with what she even means. And when Sheridan forces her to be specific, she accuses him of being mean. And then when he gets up to go, she's upset at him. She's pissed that he's pissed, but frankly, he's within his right to be pissed. It's like she wanted him to treat her with the same understanding and patience and softness and gentleness that he's given her all this time when they've been together, but she's not really owed that anymore at this point. And it really bugged me that she sort of turned it on him and it was like he was being mean to her. Anyway, Sheridan goes, and it was sad to see him go. It was sad because it was you could tell he was really beloved by the people in the house. None of those farewell hugs were fake. And also frustrating because, in a perfect world, he could team up with Savannah and they could go and perform together at the next show. And who cares if they're not romantically aligned? And it doesn't matter to me in terms of making music, whether or not they're romantically involved. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm resisting talking about that. Okay, so Brandon now sits Savannah down, and this is where the episode gets to the kind where you love to hate it. Like Brandon is really that kind of villain where you're like, ooh, you really suck. I enjoy watching you because you're so terrible. So he sits down and tells Savannah that he has feelings for Julia, and Savannah, understandably, is upset because according to her, he gave her his word that he'd come back to her. But of course, Brandon, instead of taking any responsibility whatsoever, he gaslights Savannah and tells her that it's her who's only in 95%. And the other 5% of her is mysterious and it scares the shit out of him. Oh my God, it was textbook gaslighting, turning it around on her. I'm going to resist talking about this because I dedicate a very lovely portion of my Flair recap to how terrible Brandon is. So be sure to read my Flair recap. I will resist going there now. Okay, so we're now at the Roxy and everyone's ready to go for their performances. And Julia is in a girl chat with all the ladies talking about her relationship with Brandon and how much chemistry they have, yada, yada, yada. And then this is where things get a little interesting. And I'm interested to hear your guys' take on this and whose side you're on in this. So Natasha oversteps, I mean, there's no question that she was overstepping here, by revealing the earmuff comment. To me, it was obvious this was meant to rile Julia up. I already had my suspicions that Natasha's, she's a producer pet. Like, she's the one who's kind of a good sport about, being a shit disturber. And there's one of those every single season. As much as I'm not necessarily a fan of Julia's, I agree with her to the extent that it was kind of a crappy thing for one performer to do another, which is, tell them potentially upsetting information or anything that would sort of add more pressure to a performance than you needed, because everyone feels pressure beforehand. Everyone's nervous. It's something you just sort of do as a courtesy. You just hold back certain information. As a singer, I can relate to this. There have been countless times where singers have, kept things from me, or I've kept things from them purposely so that they can just do their best, or I can do my best with a clear head, and then afterwards it's like, oh, this really big important person was in the audience and I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to be more nervous, but now you know. That's a very common thing with performers, so I can see why Julia would have an issue with what Natasha did. That said, it's also on Julia to know her limit. It kind of stood out to me that Natasha did preface with, I hate to say this and I don't want it to affect you in any way, ... That was Julia's cue to say, don't tell me after, I have to perform, I don't want to hear it. If anything's prefaced with I don't want it to affect you, I hate to say this, you got to know your limit. I've done this countless times. I've done it with my agent. I've done it with other singers. One time my agent was like, oh, there's this exciting information about this audition. Like, I want to tell you. And I was like, don't tell me. I don't want to know. It's only going to make me more nervous. So I really feel like ultimately Julia is the one responsible for her performance. And if she knows that she's affected by something like this enough to affect her performance, then she should know how to stop that from ever happening. Rant done. Okay, now for the performances themselves. Rudy and Matt, I mean, they were just killer. Rudy's singing is just so fantastic. She gives me goosebumps and they just sound really good together. Trevor and Jamie, I actually didn't find this performance as terrible as everyone made it seem like it was. It's more, not so much that, it's more that I didn't think it was any worse than last week's, but it's just that last week was entirely about their connection. She had a moment to sort of say this cute backstory with them and how supported she felt. Well, this time it really was just about their performance, and their performance was like, okay. So I thought that it just felt like they were a little limited, and I don't know if that's just because the song wasn't in their wheelhouse or if there's just not a lot more there. So what I appreciated was that it was about their performance this week. It was less about how much eye contact they had. Okay. Brie and Chris, I mean, these two are always adorable. I love the simplicity to their singing. It's not like, there's not too many bells and whistles, it's not always about showing off. It's very sincere. Julia and Brandon. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It was satisfying to watch this crash and burn in the way it did, just because Brandon, how do I put this? I don't feel like he's that great. I don't know if he said early on this song, he didn't know this song, he wasn't vibing the song. Sure, that's fine. But it kind of felt like he dropped the ball on both the performing and the requisite connecting. It just felt weirdly right for it to go so wrong. I shouldn't say that, but it's totally true. Natasha and Ryan, I think it says something that this was the only performance I went out of my way to rewind and rewatch, because I just love Natasha singing. I think she's so good. I also love that Ryan pulled out the guitar and showed off on that. They're both just insanely talented, and it's lovely to watch. So after the performance, Julia just comes right out and points a finger at Natasha and more or less blames her for what happened on stage, and says that no performer should do to another performer what Natasha did to her. You know, I do see Julia's point on this, but there comes a point where you just don't have that much sympathy anymore. I just feel like Julia is officially the common denominator in a lot of the drama in this house, and it's kind of just sounded like whining at this point. You know, like I said, she is a performer, she's a professional, or is striving to be a professional. You know, think about how many times a performer goes on stage and just heard awful news or something that they didn't want to hear and it affected them. I just feel like she's pointing fingers just to sort of not accept the reality of her own ability to perform and her own decision making. So that is it for episode 4. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you agree, disagree with me, and be sure to read my Flair recap. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys here next week on the morning after. Bye.